Happy Sunday. Welcome, Angelo. Angelo is Angeline's younger brother. He flew alone from Indonesia. Just arrived yesterday. We are glad to have you. So, imagine you are a member of pastor's search committee. Okay? So you are looking for a pastor. There are two candidates. The first one is very smart, know the Bible so well. He is a good teacher, but not a great preacher. Sometimes when he preached, the congregation fell asleep. He has strong character. He will say what is in his mind, no pretending, just being blunt. If you are wrong, he will say you are wrong. The second candidate is not as much as the first one, but he is a better preacher. When he preaches, many people repent. He doesn't have strong character like the first candidate. And even he has a bad reputation of being disloyal to his superior. And because of that, he regretted and tried to change. So, which one will you accept? Candidate number 1 or 2? Both. Unfortunately, the church only needs one pastor, cannot afford 2. Which one, number 1 or 2? Number 2? Why? What is your criteria in making the decision? Character? Loyalty? Doctrines? Intelligence? Or what? Well, today we will learn from Jesus how he chose his 12 disciples. As I explained shortly, those 12 disciples, I want you to think these things, okay? Number 1, why did Jesus choose them, okay? And then number 2, what criteria did Jesus use to choose them? And now I invite Mr. Senden to come here and read Mark 1, 16 to 20, and then Mark chapter 3, verses 13 to 19. And Don will read in Mandarin, right, Don?
Yeah, but if you said. It's Mark 1, 16 through 20. Jesus called his first disciples. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come follow me," Jesus said. "I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. When he had gone a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat preparing their nets. Without delay he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. Okay, now
Chapter 3, 13 to 19.
okay, chapter 3. 3-91. Jesus points to 12. Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to him those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12, that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach, and to have authority to drive out demons. These are the 12 he appointed: Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter; James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. To them he gave the name Boanerges, which means sons of thunder; Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him.
Thank you.
Okay. No music?
Well, let's start with Simon, the first disciple that we want to know about. In the Gospels, Simon is portrayed as impulsive. Excuse me. Jesus gave him the nickname Cephas, John 1:42, which translates to Peter in Greek, meaning what? Rock. He was a fisherman. In the Gospel, Peter is most known for walking on water, and then disowning Jesus to avoid persecution. Okay? And then number 2, James. James was a fisherman too, before Jesus called him. James, son of Zebedee, is one of at least 3 important New Testament figures named James. This James is often referred to as James the Greater, to distinguish him from James, son of Alphaeus, James the Less, who may be the same person as James, son of Alphaeus, and James, the brother of Jesus. Mark tells us that Jesus nicknamed James and John son of thunder. Unfortunately, he doesn't tell us what the nickname means or where it comes from. This has led many to assume it referred to their speech, temperament, or ambition. The third disciples, John, son of Zebedee, was the third disciple considered to be part of Jesus' inner circle with his brother James and Peter. Like James, Peter, and several other disciples, John was a fisherman. Like his brother James, John was given the nickname Son of Thunder. Whether it was for their explosive temperament, speech, ambition, or something else, James and John clearly had some defining quality in common. Both of them seems have something in common. The 12 apostles were some of his closest disciples, but 3 members of the 12 were closer than anyone else, and they are Peter, James, and John. Together, They witnessed miracles and moments the other apostles were not included. Also, the time Jesus raised a girl from the dead in Mark 5. The transfiguration, the rest of the disciples didn't see that. Also, Jesus' moment of weakness in the Garden of Gethsemane. Only those 3 disciples saw Jesus. And then the 4th disciple is Andrew. Andrew was Simon Peter's brother. Like his brother, he was a fisherman. According to the Gospel of John, Andrew was the first disciple Jesus called. He was John the Baptist's disciple. And then number 5, Philip. Philip the apostle is only mentioned 8 times in the New Testament, 4 of which are the list of apostles. However, there are 3 other people named Philip in the New Testament too. 2 are sons of King Herod, and the other is Philip the evangelist, who was often mistaken for Philip the apostle even early on. One of the few details the Bible gives us about Philip the apostle is that, like Peter and Andrew, he comes from Bethsaida, a town near the Sea of Galilee. Later, when some Greek men from Bethsaida want to see Jesus, they come to Philip first, presumably because they knew he was from the same town as them, or possibly because he spoke Greek the best. Philip's most notable moment in the Gospels is his role in bringing, can you guess? We learned this last Friday. Nathanael, to Jesus. Nathanael is only mentioned in the Gospel of John, but many assume this is another name for Bartholomew. So now number 6, Bartholomew. He is one of the most unknown apostles. His name only appears in the 4 list of Jesus, 12 main disciples. And he has never listed with any titles or descriptions. All we really know is his name, and that he was closely associated with Philip. Number 7, Matthew. Matthew, also known as Levi, right? He was a tax collector. One of the most hated professions in first century Judaism. As a tax collector, Matthew collected taxes for Rome from his fellow Jews in Capernaum. That in itself would be enough to make him feel like a political traitor. His profession was a symbol of Israel's Roman occupation. But to make matters worse, tax collectors made their money by saying people owed Caesar more than they did, and then skimming the extra off the top. And there was nothing anyone could do about it. As a result, tax collectors were right up there with prostitutes for the go-to example of the worst sinners. I hope you are thinking why Jesus chose Matthew, who really had a bad reputation. The number 8, Thomas. Thomas, perhaps better known as Doubting Tom. Yeah, Doubting Tom. Famously doubted the resurrection of Jesus and told the other disciples, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. John 20:25. The Bible didn't give him a real name. Most manuscripts include the description called Didymus or called the twin. So probably Thomas had a twin brother or sister. Number 9, James, son of Alphaeus. James, son of Alphaeus, is only mentioned in the 4 list of apostles. So all we can say for sure about him is that he had a really common name, and he was the son of someone named Alphaeus. He is obviously not the same person as James, son of Zebedee, or James, the brother of Jesus. As you know, Jesus had at least 4 brothers: James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. Yeah, Matthew 13 and Mark 6. And then number 10, Jude. Jude the Apostle is also known as Jude of James, Judas of James, Thaddeus, Judas Thaddeus, and Lebbeus. Some identify him with Jesus' brother Jude. The traditional author of the Epistle of Jude, but the Bible doesn't tell us these Jews are the same people. Number 11, Simon the Zealot. He is only mentioned by name in list of the apostles. He may have belonged to a Jewish sect known as the Zealots, who were bent on revolution and looking for a Messiah to finally overthrow Rome. Or he may have simply been zealous for the Mosaic law, or zealous for Jesus and his teachings. The Bible doesn't tell us what the zealot signified, so no one can say for sure. And then the last one, Judas Iscariot. He is one of the most widely known disciples. He infamously betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, which led to Jesus' death on the cross. Today, Judas is virtually synonymous with traitor. No one want to name their son Judas. But when I was in the seminary, I had a friend named Judas. Judas Iscariot may have been considered good with money or trustworthy, because somehow he would up being the designated treasurer for Jesus and his disciples. Ironically, the first passage that tells that he was in charge of the group's money also tells us that he was completely untrustworthy. Okay, we are done with those 12 disciples. What criteria did Jesus use in choosing those disciples? Anyone want to answer? Why Jesus chose Matthew? Why did Jesus chose James and John, the sons of thunder? Why did Jesus choose Simon the Zealot? Was it based on their profession or background of education? Well, we only know for sure that one of them was a tax collector. So he must be a good accountant. Yeah? He's good with counting money. And 4 of them were fishermen. We don't know the rest. What they did, what were their professions before they followed Jesus. But I don't think this was the criteria. How about their character? What do you think? Did Jesus choose them because they have good character? Well, Peter was unstable. James and John were hot-tempered and ambitious. Simon the Zealot was a radical. Matthew or Levi was greedy. So I don't think Jesus chose them because of their good character. If that's so, based on what? Not based on their background of education, profession, intelligence, or even character. I think it was based on his will or freedom to choose. Romans 9:15 to 16 say, for God says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. It does not, therefore, depend on human desire or effort, but on God's mercy. In other words, Jesus chose them based on his grace and mercy. And I believe this is still true today. Lately, I have been thinking a lot about this issue. I saw some pastors or preachers that God uses amazingly, are smart, devoted to Him, and have good character and reputation, like Pastor Tim Keller, who just passed away. I like to hear his sermons. But not all are like that. For example, you still remember Ted Haggard. He's the founder and former pastor of New Life Church in Colorado Springs, Colorado. After 22 years, his church had a congregation of 14,000 members. Wow. In 22 years, his church became a mega church with 14,000 members. Was it because he was a great man of God? In 2006, Haggard admitted to drug use, some sexual activity with a man, and an inappropriate relationship with a young man who attended his church. So sad, so bad. And you may ask, how could Jesus, how could God use him, bless his ministry from a small group, become 14,000 members of church? Another example is Charles Stanley. Almost everyone here knows him, right? He founded and was president of In Touch Ministries. Every week, his sermons reach millions of people around the world. Millions of people. Did you know that after Charles and his wife Anna married for 45 years, they got divorced in 2000 after receiving counseling, marital counseling, 4 years. There was no third party involved. It was not because one of them cheated the spouse, no. It was a communication and relationship problems between them. I wonder why he didn't want to reconcile and try to save his marriage, knowing that divorce could damage his ministry and was not God's will. I don't know. I just wonder why. But after his divorce, God still used him, even in a larger way, until his death. In 2000, some of the congregation thought, well, our pastor didn't give us a good example. How could we have that kind of pastor? But then the leader said, we will keep him. And what happened? God used him. Even after his divorce, his ministry reached more people in the world. And here is the question, why? And I think the answer is because it was not based on his goodness nor ability, but on what? God's grace and mercy. When God chooses and uses someone, He wants to show him or her His grace and mercy amidst their weaknesses, their fault. It is God who works in them. Therefore, remember this: if God uses us, don't be proud and steal His glory. We need to learn from John the Baptist, right? During the Bible study. Wow, John the Baptist is a good example how humble he was, how he tried to exalt Jesus. And if God does not use us greatly, or He only gives us 1 or 2 talents, we should not complain. Why only 1? Why only 2, God? You give my friend 4, even 5. We need to learn from Andrew. We learned before about Andrew. Do you remember that he was Jesus' first disciple? He was the first disciple before the rest, 11. Andrew was the first disciple of Jesus. But he was not among the 3 Jesus' closest disciples. Can you imagine if you were in Andrew's position? Jesus, I introduced my brother Peter to you, but now you chose my brother over me. You took him with you, James and John, but you never took me with you. Andrew could have thought like that, right? Why? And Andrew not only brought Peter to Jesus, but he told Peter that Jesus was the Messiah. Remember last Friday we learned? Andrew, not Peter. But who get the credit from Jesus? Peter. Matthew 16. Peter knew from Andrew. Then when Peter said, "Oh Jesus, you are the Messiah," and then Jesus praised Peter, not Andrew. Andrew was faithful to Jesus from the beginning. But his brother, Peter, disowned Jesus 3 times. But at the Pentecost, God used Andrew or Peter? Peter. Who disowned Jesus? Andrew was faithful to Jesus, but God chose Peter to preach the gospel. And as the result, 3,000 people were baptized. Why didn't God use Andrew instead? Because it is up to God to use anyone. All because of His grace and mercy. I want to close this message by inviting you to sing this song that was composed by my friend from the seminary many years ago. The song title is Semua Karena Anugerahnya. The lyrics in this song depicts the truth that we learn today. When God uses us, not because we are better than others, not because we are strong, smarter, no. It is because of His grace and mercy. All because of His grace. So Joey is the music ready, you can play and then let's stand. And as we sing this song, let's give thanks to the Lord, because if we can serve Him, it is because of His grace and mercy. And after this, I invite Melrose to lead the prayer, for the message today. Are you familiar with this song, Susie? Bukan karena kebaikanmu, bukan karena fasih lidahmu, bukan karena kekayaanmu, kau dipilih, kau dipanggilnya, bukan karena kecakapanmu, bukan karena baik rupamu, bukan karena kelebihanmu, kau dipanggil, kau dipakainya. Bila engkau dapat, itu karenanya. Next. Bila engkau punya semua dari padanya, semua hanya anugerahnya, diberikannya pada kita. Semua anugerahnya bagi kita, bila kita dipakainya. Thank you, Jesus, for your grace and mercy. Thank you. We don't deserve to serve you. Bukan karena kecakapanmu, bukan karena baik rupamu, bukan karena kelebihanmu, kau dipanggil, kau dipakainya. Bila engkau dapat, itu karenanya. Bila engkau punya semua dari padanya, semua hanya anugerahnya, diberikannya pada kita. Semua anugerahnya bagi kita, bila kita dipakainya. Semua hanya anugerahnya, diberikannya pada kita.